Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And today I'm going to end a short series of films that have recently been released in Blu-ray. So today I'm going to talk about The Edge of the World from 1937, directed by Micheal Powell and released by Milestone Films through Kino. And this is a Blu-ray upgrade of a DVD from the early 2000s. This title is available in Region B as well. And this is a beautiful cover. It's not in Technicolor, however, but this is a great shot, and so is this in the upper part of the cover art. And this is the story about an evacuation of a Scottish island. Micheal Powell had read an article in the paper about how this island of St. Kilda in 1930 was depopulated, a Scottish island. Micheal Powell loved Scotland. That's where he always, when things were going wrong or he had some spare time, Scotland would be where he would go. So he thought this would be a great idea for a movie, but St. Kilda had been, the owner of that island had transformed it into a bird sanctuary, and he did not want a film crew to disturb that. So they had to find another island, the island of Fowler, another Scottish island, which was inhabited. Now, the island of St. Kilda, like I guess all the other Scottish islands, were under the threat of depopulation. They were not able to economically survive as the younger people went away to the mainland. Their families had lived there for generations. It was somewhat of a sanctuary for them to get away from the big cities and the diseases that were rampant in previous generations and the abject poverty. So they survived on fishing, sheep, peat, and there's some shots of different vegetables that are being harvested as well. But unable to survive economically, and part of this economic structure is that they had a laird. They were basically tenant farmers. They did not own this land, and they had to provide a certain amount of profit to the laird. Now the laird, we do see the laird in this film, and he's not depicted as a bad guy. And it's very interesting too that they have sort of a parliament where the men of the community get together and they discuss these issues of should we stay or should we go. There's women on this island, but they are not part of the decision-making process. In the beginning of the film, a yacht is sailing to this island, and the wealthy owner, or who's renting this yacht, he is played by Micheal Powell, and his companion is his real-life girlfriend, soon to be his wife. But their guide had lived there. 10 years earlier was the depopulation. So he's reluctant to go because it brings back all kinds of memories of the clash that occurred on the island of should we stay or should we go, and in subsequent events that occurred in that depopulation in the context of the movie. We go back. So the rest of the film is what happened 10 years earlier. And we're now on the island of Fowler. It was an inhabited island, as they could not actually, where Powell wanted to shoot on at St. Kilda. But what a spectacular island this is. Cliffs that are just enormous and steep, and just you really do feel like you're at the edge of the world. And it's a very Powell's trademark sort of mystical view of landscapes and of relationships and of people and of faces. And this is a beautiful dissolve. This is the main actress here, Belle Crystal. And there's a beautiful dissolve as she stares down into the ocean, and we see it reflected on her face. And So they it's the edge of the world. We're at the edge of the cliff through much of this film. I'm not very good at walking close to edges of cliffs, but these actors, after they were there a little while, they got very used to it. So, I mean, you see them on the precipice. And not only do you see them on the precipice, the two main actors here, the younger actors, there's no stuntmen. You see them climbing these cliffs, and you wonder, how could they possibly have survived this? It's very spectacular in that characteristic. We are poised at the edge of the cliff. There's even a dog at one point. So if you, there should be trigger warnings for me. Dogs in peril is coming up in this film, but the actors had no fear from this. At least they don't seem to. Belle Crystal stands right on the edge of these cliffs, and it's been implied that people have gone over. Now, they went over because there's birds there, and there's rare bird eggs that they would climb down the cliff in order to get. And even one of the older actors, John Laurie, he goes down part of a cliff and has to drag up a sheep that has fallen down, but it's still alive, and he has to wrap him, and you see him climbing up. These actors, they love this experience, though, in the subsequent supplements. So we have. We have sort of a Romeo and Juliet thing going on where there's a romance between a family that thinks it's time to leave, at least the father does, and then the family that wants to stay. And there is a sort of very strange, kind of ancient ritual way that they try to decide that, which involves climbing a cliff, having a race and climbing a cliff. So there's romance here. There's quite a bit of melodrama. This seems like a documentary with, like I say, his Micheal Powell's mystical view of landscape that's so powerful. And then we have melodrama. Now, and especially the final maybe 20 minutes, there's probably a little bit too much melodrama and too much coincidence involved here. But it's always poetic. And this was Micheal Powell's first chance to make a real film. He had worked a bit in silent film. I forget what film director, it might have been G.W. Pabst, where he made significant films. But then when he became a director, he was making quota quickies, which were basically shorter films that would be on the bottom end of a double bill with a more of an A-list. According to the supplements, he made 24 of these quota films in 7 years. So this was his first. This was his first chance to make a film that really meant something to him. And you can feel in every shot of this film that these are images that mean a great deal to Micheal Powell. And so I mentioned John Laurie, who plays one of the fathers in. I know he's been in other Micheal Powell films, and he's a very identifiable character. I remember him as John the Crofter in Alfred Hitchcock's The 39 Steps, where his wife behind his back, attempts to help Richard Haney in his escape. Very, very scary character in that movie. Finley Currie plays the other patriarch. I remember, and again, an actor. He acted up until he was 93 years old. And I remember him most and forever as Magwitch in David Lean's Great Expectations, which we saw in high school because we were reading Great Expectations. So we actually were able to see that film in high school. And Finley Currie is the Magwitch of all time. So there's and Belle Crystal playing the lead actress. I did not recognize her. She looks absolutely perfect for this part. And Micheal Powell was wondering, this would be a tough role to cast. As soon as he met her, he said she has the right look. She has the the sturdiness that a character who is able to live on this island would have. So all the supplements here are from the DVD, so there's nothing new in the supplements and we get a commentary from, I guess, the 1990s with Thelma Shoemaker, who was Micheal Powell's last wife, and Ian Christie, and Thelma Shoemaker is the great editor of Martin Scorsese's films. And Daniel Day-Lewis reading from Micheal Powell's autobiography passages from his recollection of the filming of The Edge of the World. And then we get about a 30-minute documentary that Powell made 30 years after, or 40 years, I think it's in the 70s, so I guess 40 years later. Return with Finley Curry is there, the actor who plays the preacher, who is very good. And some of the crew were there as well, and reminiscing. And there were actually some Islanders who remembered, who were there during the filming, and Micheal Powell and some of the crew members. You know, you see some reunion scenes that are really striking. So, Fowler was still inhabited in the 1970s, and I was wondering, I wonder if it's still inhabited. And it is, but there's only 38, population of only 38 people currently, according to Wikipedia. So the film was not a hit in London. It was passed by, but it played when it played in New York City, and it had an American producer, a former vaudevillian, produced the film, and he loved Micheal Powell's idea of the film. He wanted to make a film with a great deal of adventure kind of film, a spectacular adventure kind of film. His company went bankrupt, though, after the film was completed, luckily. But the New York critics liked it. And the New York critics said that caught the poetry of the film, and I think it actually even won an award. It came to the attention of the Hungarian producer living in London, the great Alexander Korda, and he thought Powell had some real talent. And he was the one who matched Powell up with Emmerich Pressburger. So Edge of the World, I think, is the last film that Powell made pre-Pressburger. Now, what does Pressburger, I always wonder, what does Pressburger bring to the Micheal Powell, to the Archers? And I think, you know, because this was a screenplay written by Powell, and this melodrama that gets a little bit much in this film, I think Pressburger had probably brought a much better sense of story, perhaps even dialogue, I'm assuming. I've never read about what their collaboration, how it actually worked, but certainly you can, the kind of more structured story of Powell's subsequent films, I think could well be due to Pressburger. So, just a beautiful film. I just, you know, it's both the documentary element. Powell didn't want to make documentaries, so that's why we have this story. But in the end, I think the melodrama, even though it is a bit much, it does integrate itself into the poetry of Micheal Powell's vision. So next up, we're in November now, the Barnes & Noble sale. I'm filming this on Sunday the 5th, and I believe the Barnes & Noble sale starts tomorrow. I have a recommendation video ready to go on that, and then I'm going to do a few Criterion, what I called in July, Criterion Classics, some of the films in my collection that are in the Criterion collection I've never talked about, including a movie I thought I made a video on, but I never did, Douglas Sirk's All That Heaven Allows. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.